Hey fourth graders, happy Wednesday, it's Miss DeMonico. All right, so yesterday we worked on our beautiful beginning for our essay about which form, or not which form, excuse me, but how the developments of transportation impacted people. Now my prompt is a little different than yours. I'm writing about trains here, but we worked on our beautiful beginning yesterday, and we talked about what makes a beautiful beginning: orienting the reader to the topic, focus, and middle main idea, providing a definition or example, and adding a little bit more, which in this case was my setting. So I wrote my beautiful beginning yesterday. I do apologize, I made a little mistake on my paper, so I'm just gonna write around it today. But today I'm going to model to you the first part of my middle main idea. Now you want to do a few things in your middle main idea. The first thing you're going to want to do is reorient the reader. And that prefix re means to do it again. So you're going to orient the reader again. But Miss DeMonico, I just oriented the reader in my beginning. I know, but you still have to do it again in your middle. So you just want to make sure, you tell them your topic, focus, middle, main idea. The other thing you want to do is provide text evidence. Now this is a tricky one because you cannot copy. Say that. No copy. Good. But you can paraphrase, which means you're going to use evidence that was in the text and you're going to say it in your own words. The last thing you want to make sure you have in there is some original thought. And there are many types of original thought. Miss DeMonico is going to use an anecdote, but today I'm really going to focus on my text evidence and reorienting the reader. And I'm going to keep my checklist close. I am starting a new paragraph, fourth graders, which means I am going to indent, which means I'm going to have a nice fat finger space right there. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reorient the reader to my topic, focus, and middle main ideas. One of the ways trains impacted people is that this form of transportation, whew, that's a mighty word right there, provided travel to far away places for large, I'm sorry about this part right here, large groups of people, period. All right. Now I'm going to give them, right there I've reoriented the reader, now I'm going to give them some text evidence to back it up a little bit. Remember, we are talking about the development of trains. Trains didn't just appear overnight and all of a sudden they're amazing. They were developed over time to become better and better and better so that people could travel far away, but also at a fast pace. So I'm going to give the reader a little background knowledge by providing some text evidence, but remember to paraphrase. In the 1700s, this is text evidence right here, the steam engine was invented, comma, this allowed for the development of the first locomotive. And we talked about that word locomotive yesterday. It's another word for train, but I don't want to use the word train over and over and over again, so I'm going to spice it up a little bit. This was the first time in history transportation allowed people to travel city to city in a vehicle that was not their own, period. All right, I'm going to explain what I just did there. So I provided some text evidence here. I wrote that in 1700s, the steam engine was invented, and this allowed for the development of the first locomotive. Well, why was this a big deal? So who cares, right? Well, this was the first time in history transportation allowed people to move city to city. But it's not just that. Because at that point, cars were invented, bicycles were invented, people rode horses. But those were private vehicles. Maybe a family or a husband and wife could go travel, or a couple of friends. But really, you know, this was one way where people they didn't have to drive. Somebody else did all the work for them. It's the first kind of like public transportation that took people really far places, which is a huge, huge deal. I'm going to keep adding a little bit more evidence here. In the 1950s, trains became even faster and stronger. That's a mighty statement. I'm gonna have to explain that more to the reader, but I'm actually gonna go ahead and stop there right now, and I'm gonna re-look at my work and see what it is that I've done here. All right, so I have my little checklist for my mighty middle here, and I know I need to reorient the reader, I need to add text evidence, I need an original thought. My middle's not complete yet, but let's see what I've done so far. I'm gonna reread it. One of the ways trains impacted people is that this form of transportation provided travel to faraway places for large groups of people. Okay, right there, I've reoriented the reader. I've mentioned my topic, which is my trains, my focus, which is impacted people, and I even gave them my middle main idea, which is travel to faraway places and large groups of people. Right there is my middle main idea. All right, so I've reoriented the reader. I do think that sentence needs some work though, so I'm going to put a little star next to it, and I'm going to edit that tomorrow. All right, let's see what kind of text evidence I provide. In the 1700s, the steam engine was invented. This allowed for the development of the first locomotive. This was the first time in history transportation allowed people to travel city to city in a vehicle that was not their own. Right here is what I like to call first cite, then explain, and I'll write that down. What that means is first you give a little piece of evidence to the reader, and then you explain that evidence to the reader, because you have to treat the reader like they didn't read the text and they don't have any idea what they're talking about. So you can tell them the steam engine was invented and the first locomotive, but your reader's not going to understand why that impacted people. Your reader's not going to know why that was important. It's your job as the writer to explain that to them. So I did provide text evidence and I did paraphrase, but you know what? I really need to go back and edit this sentence right here because I think it's a little wordy. And I also need to make sure I add a little bit more text evidence to support my middle main idea. It's not quite enough. And I also need to add original thought. So that's what I'm gonna work on tomorrow. So today, fourth graders, I want you to start on working on your middle. Try to reorient the reader and provide some text evidence. And tomorrow I'll show you how I would add original thought. All right, bye fourth graders. See you tomorrow.